Storygoers, and welcome back to another episode of Tales from the Cartridge, the video game storytelling podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Eric Penrod.
I will be one of your other co-hosts, Ryan Bauer.
And Ryan, we have an amazing memory card episode today. We are joined by none other than the wonderful, amazing Celeste. Celeste,
Hi.
How are you?
Hi, friends. Good to be back again. I'm doing good.
As
How are
always.
y'all doing?
Good, good.
Well.
Happy to have you here. As we always ask, how are you, and what have you been playing?
I'm doing good. I guess since last I was on for the Baldur's Gate 2 that we started, I transed myself real good. So that was a fun time. Started hormones and everything, so that's always a fun time.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hey.
Otherwise, things have been good. Just living the dream. Got a nice job now that lets me have a little more time to play some fun games and things.
Yay.
Let me check. I've been doing a thing since the pandemic started, a little notes on my phone of what games I've been playing.
That's smart.
Let's see.
Very
This
smart,
year,
yeah.
so far, I've got, the abusive relationship I can never quit with League of Legends because I have friends to play that with. Just got back into Overwatch 2 because I like suffering. Also, there's not enough. I don't hate myself enough. That needs to change.
I feel that so much.
What was it? I got back into Valheim since they came out with the Mistlands update recently, which I still need to take Ryan on a little tour through that because I don't want to give too much away for him, but it's a fun spooky time. Lots of dangerous things and fun Viking shit to do. And otherwise, what was it? So my other friends got me into getting some mods to play Skyrim together. Where it lets you
really
kind
fun.
of be on the same server and do stuff. It's buggy as fuck. And it crashes once every 30 minutes, but it's really fun to play Skyrim and like watching your friends just like run around and figuring out how to do stuff together. So it's the one thing that really let this 12-year-old game be kind of fun and new and exciting again. I also played I was telling y'all before, played the Baldur's Gate 3 early access. And was really excited to hear Minsk and Boo will be in Baldur's Gate 3 when it comes out later this year. So just literally all my molecules vibrating in sheer joy waiting for that. But that's some of the things I've been up to.
Nice. Well, very, very nice. We're so happy to have you here, as you'll be our main contributor to this episode, but we'll get into that in just a few minutes. But first, Ryan, how are you? And what have you been playing? As I wave this pen, you can't see. Sorry, as I'm waving a pen around for some reason. I don't know why.
Aggressively
Answer the question.
I am doing pretty well. It is still a busy, wild time, but overall good. Playing not much new. Destiny Season 19 still cranking away. Got a month till Lightfall. Very excited for that. They just announced huge changes to the game where everybody has all the mods now.
Wow.
You can do whatever you want now. We're having loadouts next season. We're taking away armor stuff. It's very exciting. So they're making some fun changes to that. Played Up, which is a game we both love. They had a Lunar New Year update where you're making dumplings, and that's very fun.
We gotta play.
Yeah. And there's also
play.
seaweed as a side, and bamboo is a side, and you have to have put soy sauce out on the table for the dumplings. It's very fun.
I want to play
and very
so
good.
bad.
And then I tried a little bit. Bear Breakfast is a game I've wanted to play for a long, long time, and I finally is stable on Steam Deck, so I was playing it a little bit, and it was very fun. But I haven't played a ton yet. But it's just a very chill, relaxing game. Also, I've been playing a game called Dwarf Romantic, which is a very chill, relaxing tile placing game. And Luck Be a Landlord, which is a game where you roll. It's like a casino style thing, but you are building a deck of faces on it. So it spins, and if you have a cat and milk, the cat eats the milk and you get $2 from that cat, and you have to every 6 spins have to pay your landlord, and in the end you murder your landlord, and you and all your other tenants take control of the means of housing, and that is the arc of the game. It's very fun and silly.
Oh my god.
I need to add that to my Steam wish list.
Luck Be a Landlord. It's a very chill, fun game. It's kind of like a deck building. what are they called? Those
Just a
silly
deck
machine-
building game?
Yeah, but you're not like building cards. You're like putting different faces on a. What are slot machine? You're putting faces on a slot machine. So like and there are like endless amounts of combinations. It gets really wild, and you have to like pick and choose what things you put on it to get money, and it's really fun and just kind of a really fun, mindless game of luck and fun. So yeah, that's what I've been playing. Some bits and bobs here and there. But Eric, how are you? What have you been playing?
I'm good. Like you said, it's kind of been a crazy week. It's just kind of been a crazy beginning of the year. It feels like a little bit, but not too bad. I just went cross country skiing successfully. I only fell once, and I only fell because of this dumb rock. This dumb, stupid rock that was stuck in the ground, and I was going down a hill, and my knees were bent, and I was facing forward, and I was doing such a good job, and that dumb rock twisted my ski to the side, and I fell over. And I was and right at the very end too. It was like I was like the pinnacle of like my dopamine just like super, just rushing through my brain. I was doing such a good job, and then I crashed. But I had a really good time. So, and then I also ate pizza outside in the cold, which is surprisingly fun. I don't know why. It feels like it's wrong, but it's right. And for what I've been playing, honestly, I've only been playing Pokemon Violet. I've actually been really enjoying it.
Good.
Much more than I anticipated. Much more. I played Pokemon Sword when it came out, and I was just really disappointed by it. So I was a little nervous about Pokemon Violet, but a lot of the clients I have at work were coming in and telling me, like, from children to adults, are all telling me about playing Pokemon Violet. And I was like, all right, I'll have to, in Scarlet. And I said, all right, I'll have to get it. It's great. My only negative about it, and I may have said this last time, is that there's no level scaling. So like you can go into a battle with like people who are just crazy more powerful than you are, and you never would know until you get into the battle and just lose horribly. So that's my only downside. Or you can get into a battle and be like way overpowered, and it's not fun. So the only negative I think about the game so far. But other than that, I've been really, really enjoying it. So, speaking of Pokemon, I want to say a huge shout out to all the Storygoers, because we hope that you enjoyed our last episode, our bedtime story for Pokemon Yellow. And I want to say a big thank you to everyone who's listened, because it's been out for a week now, I think. Yeah. And it's been our fastest downloaded, our most downloaded bedtime story episode just within a week. Like it's already gotten so many downloads in just a week.
Yeah, I was looking at today. It's got like almost 40 something or something.
Yeah, it's doing great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Usually it builds up for a while. It takes a while for it to build, but it's already like that's quite good for us in a week. So I was really happy with that. It's fun. I'm very excited to keep going with it. And I realized as I was recording it, I had written whenever I stopped in the episode, like I have so much more written. So like we already have episodes ready to go. Yeah. I'm very excited to keep going and see where we can go with this. So. Very happy about it. So I want to say thank you to everyone who's listened. So it was really, really, really nice. So, as always, Storygoers, you may email your thoughts, feelings, and perspectives to us at talesfromthecartridge@gmail.com. All the E's are threes. You can find us on Instagram as well. DM us, comment on our posts, or you can call the official Tales from the Cartridge phone number, leaving us a voicemail or a text at 207-494-4334, and we'll read everything on a future episode. So thank you. But Ryan, This is your baby. Memory card is you have piloted the ship for this, so I would love to have you take it away if you would, and get us going on this amazing episode.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we're here for a memory card, which this is I think our fourth memory card we've ever done. Which, if you don't know, memory card is really just a chance for us to talk to people we care about the things that they care about, video games specifically, and video game media. To get to know a little more about them and their relationship with video games and video game stories. I think as we've been doing these, it provides a really interesting insight into people as they talk about games that are important to them or stories they are drawn to. And I think it's just a really great way to get to know people even better. So I have been asking Celeste, and I'm so glad they're able to join me, and Eric for this episode, because I want to know more about the games they enjoy and the things they enjoy and them, because Celeste, you're a good friend of mine, and but I haven't known you for an incredibly long amount of time, and I don't know a ton about your long-term relationship with video games. I'd love to hear more about it. So my first question is, what's your story or history with video games, just in general?
Oh, in general? Wow. Oh boy, that's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I think some of the earliest things I really remember are when I was young. I just remember my parents had gotten divorced, I think, when I was like 5. And really some of my like earliest, like more like coherent memories are still, I'm like, oh no, this is just a therapy session now, isn't it? That's what it is. Is this just an intervention just to work on my deep childhood traumas? But I remember getting an original Xbox. I think it was like for Christmas the first time, and I had like the N64. And probably, I remember I had the PlayStation before that. And that was probably right around when the PlayStation 2 was coming out. But I remember like Super Smash Brothers was one of like the first games I had to really just like dig my teeth into. To just something that was just like fun to play and like learn about. And that was probably before I even knew who like half those roster of like Nintendo characters were. Like I didn't know what the heck Samus was then.
Yeah.
And then, you know, as like a not yet known queer kid who is neurodivergent growing up, it's like, oh, it turns out if you have ADHD, you know, a type of media that gives a lot of like instant feedback, especially if it has like compelling stories and good gameplay, it takes up a bit of my time. So yeah, I played a lot of games all throughout my childhood, and yeah, just lots.
Yeah.
Probably I've probably had like most consoles that have come out because my parents they got divorced, but then like they live within like 10-minute drive of each other, so I still get to see both my parents frequently, but what that means that's like 2 birthdays, 2 Christmases every year. My birthday's in October, so those are like right next to each other, but like not too close that they overlap on gifts, but it's like close enough that it's like you get those things. So it's like double the games, double the consoles. It's like a lot of times of like having to like unplug like my whole freaking Xbox and like chug it all the way over to the other house. Yeah. But now I just have most things on PC, so I can just sit here in my room and just have a good time. Yeah. That was always something I always remember, like inviting my friends over, like calling them up and be like, "Hey, you want to come over this weekend?" And that's probably usually what we do, is like play Smash Bros. Or some other game, or like watch a movie or play outside or something. God, remember playing outside?
Yeah.
The past is weird.
Yeah. Still very fun. If you haven't done it recently, still very fun. I suggest it.
Oh, I need to.
It's funny. I was thinking about that the other day, is playing outside, and how just like, it's so funny. It was always that thing of like, you guys need to get outside and play more. Like, you know, usually from adults, from playing video games, right? And like, you go outside and you can play, or there'd be times I go outside and be like, this sucks. Like, I'd rather be playing Zelda. Just like, you should sit there, you're like, this sucks. I just want to play Zelda or play Smash. I definitely remember those times.
Yeah.
Plus, is there, if between the three, right? So like, when I think back to my childhood, like the N64 was the reigning champ, right? I got my PS2 and Xbox much later than my N64. So when I think of my childhood, I think of the N64 a lot. For you in your childhood, what of the consoles, Xbox, PS, or N64, which one kind of like, is one like kind of like on a pedestal more than the others, or is it all kind of the same?
Because I'm trying to even... The N64 really had a lot of fun games that were really, like, still really fun in my memory, because that was when we still had, like, the little, like, game rental stations at our local Price Chopper.
Yes. Oh my god, yes.
They had the cartridges just, like, laid out, and you could just, like, pick one up and rent them. Because what were my big times? There was Super Mario 64, which I never beat. I also had... I think I had one where, like, I think I had one where somebody had already, like, done a good bit of progress. Because I remember just, like, running up through the castle, and, like, most of it was already, like, unlocked. But that's good, because I would never been able to get through, like, that water level. That would have shunted my progress right there. But I had, like, the Kirby 64 game, which I loved because Kirby could swallow two different people and mix their powers, which was like lights my brain
so
up
cool.
on the combos. Star Fox 64.
Yes.
That was a big time. Because those are games I've still tried to either get on like emulators or like get on like you could buy them on like your Wii U or the Switch and play them again. I remember some snowboarding game. It was like some cartoony snowboarding game. Oh, Mario
Snowboard
Kart
Kids?
too. Maybe I think so. I think it was like
Yeah,
kids.
big nose.
Yeah,
yeah, Snowboard Kids. Yeah.
I think I had the 64 one of that. I remember I never owned that one. I just rented that like several times.
Same. Oh my, yeah, same. I talked about that on the show before. But like the idea of like going into like my grocery store was called Shop and Save, and you walk in, and on the left side there's always be the rentals like side. I remember seeing Sub-Zero and N64, like I can never rent this because I'm too young, but I really want to. You know what I mean? Like,
oh my gosh,
kind of...
what game was it? That just reminds me of I had a quick tangent, which they're never quick. There's gonna be a lot of them. That just reminds me of back when games had like there was a PS2 game, War of the Monsters, which was basically like
very good. I
like
loved that game.
Yeah, it was like a brawler game, but with like these archetypes that look like it was done in like a traditional like kind of like 1950s like horror movie style with like the characters were all like giant robots or like giant praying mantises or like basically Godzilla or like basically King Kong, but like their own things that they made. And there was one skin. I think most of the skins you could unlock in the game, but there was one skin that you needed a save file on your PS2 of a separate game. I don't even remember what it was called. It was like some road rage game. Had like a death metal clown as like the
Twisted Metal.
Metal,
yes. You needed a Twisted Metal file on your PS2 to get this like one skin. And I remember going out, and I think it was because it was like rated R, and I was like, Dad, I need to rent this game so I can get a save file on it. I think I remember I played the game for maybe like 20 minutes. And it was like, I get that skin. It wasn't even for like a character I really liked playing in War of the Monsters, but I remember that. It was like just the weird shit you had to do in games to get things.
Yep. So good.
The N64 is like probably like the foundational one there. Had a lot of fun on, definitely a lot of like Xbox, like Halo I got into.
Yeah.
Like any Star Wars games for the Xbox at that time. And then like the PS2. I think when like I think OG Battlefront I had on the Xbox. That's right. And I had the Dreamcast too. I had fucking everything.
Dreamcast.
Wow.
Yeah. Good times. Is there any one game or a couple of games that you think have had like either now or when you were younger that had like an impact on like how you see the world or media that you like to engage in now? Or is there any game or game series that is like really important to you as a person or that you connect with or that you think back to?
I guess I'll go with, since I was thinking of it for today, game I actually played like just last year. I played, and I think I've talked to you a little bit about it, Ryan, but a little game called Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice.
Oh.
Which was a game that half of my Steam library right now is things that I've seen like YouTubers that I like really recommend. And I'm like, gotta get that. And I get them because sometimes they're like $5 games or like they're on sale or they just really recommend them. I'm like, gotta get that. I probably got... When did I get Senua's Sacrifice? Does it say when I first started playing it? Because I think I probably got it like 3 years ago. Like I bought it and then didn't play it till like last year. I think it was because in my brain I always did that thing where the reviewers said like, it's a game you probably could beat like in a day. I think I beat it in probably... like less than a week, easily. And I think I just had that idea that like I could beat this in an afternoon, so I'll pick a good afternoon. And then I just was always like, not this afternoon. I'll try next afternoon. And then I just never did that. And I'm like, I just want to play this game. I need to stop buying games. I need to start playing the ones I have in my Steam library. And I've heard this one's really good, so I want to try it. And so I finally got around to playing it, and Hellblade: Senua Sacrifice is basically about TLDR, a Celtic warrior, a woman named Senua, who is basically on a spirit quest to try and revive her dead husband, whose soul was taken by Vikings, by the Norsemen, and sort of her journey. And it's this really, like, gritty, dark game, but it's also just really, like, I don't know if heartfelt is the word, but it's definitely, it's not like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like simultaneously like very, it's just this journey of this woman going through just like literal hell. Like she's literally trying to get to like Viking hell. And but it's still such like it's such a hopeful story. It's like there's so much like pain and fear and darkness, but it's all just to like get to this person she loves. And it just, I don't know, it just made it it's so very different from anything else I've ever played. And the other big kind of, I don't want to say gimmick, because they put more work into it if you watch like the behind the scenes things for it, but they also, it's very heavily implied throughout the game that Senua is like suffering from severe mental illness. Like she's got severe psychosis that causes auditory and visual hallucinations. So throughout the game, right from the start, there's another voice narrating that's not Senua's. And it's interesting because they kind of address you, the player, through like second person. So it's like, it kind of, I don't know if it was intended, but it kind of gives this feeling like maybe like, in this case, you kind of get to be ahead in Senua's voice too. But it's like a little like Greek chorus, I think of like, I'm not even exactly sure on the number. I think it's about 4. There's like the main like narrator woman who sounds kind of more like mature. And then there's like 3, I think they're listed in the credits as the Furies. I think they're never called that in the game, but I think that's how they're like referred to. And there's these 3 voices who constantly throughout the entire game are always kind of like, especially if you've got like good headphones like these, it's like they sound like they're usually like next to or behind you. To kind of give that feeling like they're like in Senua's head. And the whole time, everything you do, because it's like she's going on this dangerous journey, you know, in the beginning of the game, you're mostly like scaling some rocks and like going over rickety bridges as they're like setting the tone, and the voices are like, can she go back? No, she has to go forward. It's like, she has to save him. She's a fool. She's already dead. It's like, no. And it's like you're going over the rocks and they'll be like, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. And they like overlap each other, and it's like, can be like almost overwhelming at times, but it's such like a just sensory experience I've never had in a game before that really made it like stand out. Which like I had my partner try out the game, and like that was a little like overstimulating and overwhelming for them, which is like super heckin' valid. So it's like may not be set up for everybody, but I think especially the behind the scenes things, they talk about how it's they really have done like they brought in people like suffering from like those kinds of conditions in real life to like get their feedback and get their stories and experience like put into this game. But it's, and the combat's pretty fun too. You get a sword and you get to hack away at undead Viking people. But then the main course of the game is, in attempting to open the door to hell, Senua gets this dark rot that starts like blackening and consuming her hand. And it's the one time the game puts up like words to tell you something. And it's that like every time you like fail in combat, basically every time you quote unquote die in the game, the rot on Senua's arm grows and snakes further up her arm and towards her head. And if it gets to her head, like, she's permadead. And the game's over. So it's like, there's checkpoints, for parts of the game, but it's like, if you die too many times, then you donezo. Gotta start all the way over. So that adds a lot of, like, tension to, like, each fight, where it's like, I remember I got like a good ways through before I died my first time. But it's such a, the whole thing is such, like, a harrowing journey. And just like with Senua, the game really plays with your perceptions. It's pretty much split up between, like, combat and puzzles. And a lot of the puzzles have to do with, like, lining things up and, like, perception things, kind of like some of the Riddler trophies were in, like, the Arkham games. If you've played those, that's, like, the best thing I can think of to compare it to. But, like, much less grindy, and, like, they're actually, like, kind of, like, fun to do. Or, like they have these gates that are built, where it's like when you go, you'll be, like, looking at a wall, but then when you go through the gate and look through the gate, the wall's gone. And when you pass through the gate, the wall remains gone. And if you go back around and try to go through the gate again, now the wall will be there again. So it's like there's all these, like, weird, like, illusion things, and they have times where it's like it's completely dark and stuff like that. But it was, and the story is just really good. The acting's really good. If it's a game that you think you can handle, I would very much recommend it.
When you played with your partner, were you able to both have a pair of headphones on while you played?
I played it first, and then I kind of recommended it to them and had them, like, try it through my Steam library. So I think they tried it a little bit with headphones and then without. And I think a lot of it too is they found it a little distracting. Which is, like, it can be a lot. So I definitely understand that.
I've not played it, and I want to so bad. And now this makes me really want to play it, because I love Ninja Theory, I think, is the developer.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, which they made DMC, and I really like DMC. I know a lot of people who love Devil May Cry did not like DMC. I really like DMC. And I think they had another title I really enjoyed, but now I can't think of it off the top of my head. But I like them a lot. I think they're great developers.
But I'll say one thing. I think the one thing I really took from this game, besides it just being a great friggin' story, like, just games like that really stick with you, just because it's like just a great experience to go through. God, really, the games. It's the same reason, like, why is House Beneviento the scariest part in Resident Evil 8? They take away your gun. It's like, things are less scary when you can at least shoot at them. Even if the bullets don't do anything, you at least feel good, like,
Mm-hmm.
So there's a point where, but Senua obviously doesn't fight with, like, a fucking, Glock. She's got a sword. But they've got a part where she doesn't have her sword. There's one level where she goes in this area, it's pitch dark. Like, even in the game, you can, like, hardly see. But the voice of her dead husband kind of comes to her. It's like, hey, I'm here. It's like, I'm going to help you through this. And you kind of just have to go, a lot of it, it's like some of it you can kind of see, but a lot of it you have to go by, like, sound, where there's, like, a little, like, babbling brook you have to follow or something, or sometimes little lights in places, but it starts to get, like, kind of, like, darker and darker. But you have this, like, literally, like, the one, like, the main, like, support in her life, who's, like, there, and is just very, like, it's like, you've got this, like, just keep breathing. And I'm like, oh, I need to hear that as the player. That's good game design, because now I'm anxious as fuck. But eventually it gets to this point where at first it's, like, just dark and you're just kind of going through, but eventually, like, other things start coming in. And it was the worst, because it was, like, you could still sort of make out the silhouettes, but they were, like, these, like, undulating things in the darkness. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, it's like the enemies that are normally in the game, but I just need to avoid them. It's like, no, these are, like, I'm like literally seeing them. I'm like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck? I don't know what that is, and it's making noises, and I don't like it. But it was something I still got through that level. That was probably the hardest one for me. And it was probably the closest I came to, like, having more of really that sense of, like, panic in the game come up for me because it was just rather stressful, but it was exciting, and without kind of that like supportive voice there, and I think it was completely clear of like the Furies at that point. I don't even remember them talking. I just remember she's just got her husband Dillion there, just in her head. It was just like, keep going forward. I'm with you. It's like, you can do this. You'll be all right. And I'm just like, we're gonna do this, Senua. We're gonna make it through the thing. And I think I'm trying to even remember if I failed at one thing and got reset at one point. I don't even know if I did. I may have made the whole thing without it, because I could tell if I had to reset and start a part of that over, I would have probably been like, can't do it a second time. Because God, I think like the whole last stretch of it is like you fall into a basement and it's just got like hanging bodies and shit, and it's like and there's things in there. And I think it's like flooded too, so it's like it's like you're wading through water while there's like upside down like corpses, like you have to like avoid, while there's also patrolling undulating creatures, and it's just like, fuck this, fuck everything about this. But I got through it, and I beat that level. And I just remembered while I was doing that, it's like I remember feeling close to that feeling of panic, but feeling like I've still got this. I've got enough of me, and I've got enough of my resolve that I'm like, I was literally talking to the game the whole time. I'm like, we've got this, Senua. We're gonna get through this. It's gonna be fun. And I'm literally like remembering to breathe, because the game reminded me to breathe. And I just remember kind of taking that and when I succeeded in that, you get through that and you get back and you're like out of the darkness and you're back to the rest of the game. I just remember I kind of had that idea in my head. Now I'm like Senua, I'm like, we can do hard things. I was like, that was really difficult. Not even from a gameplay perspective. The gameplay, it's like looking back on it, is sort of kind of easy. It's like the things aren't too hard to avoid. If it was just like a fully lit thing where you had to like dodge these black cubes that are walking by, it's like, oh, that's fine. It's like, oh, just move that way. But it's like, it's the atmosphere. It's the storytelling. It's you're in the dark and there's these horrible, like, unknowable monsters that are just there. What do they do if they get you? I don't fucking know. I don't think any of them grabbed me, so that's still a horrifying mystery to me to this day. But because the rest of the game really stresses that theme of trial and perseverance and being resilient through literally like the worst fucking things life can throw at you. But the game had like shown me through being able to play that what that sense of like bravery and strength and perseverance through those types of feelings felt like. And so I took that, and it's like anytime else something was in the game, because that, there's more shit in the game after that where it's like, oh, you come up to like some dark cave and you're like, we have to go in the fucking cave. God damn it. God damn it. There's literally no light in there. Or it's something like that. But then I would like stop and I'd like breathe. And I'm like, we can do this, son. It's like, we can get through this. So that was just a really like profound kind of lesson for me. Especially as someone who has dealt with like a lot of anxiety throughout my life. That it's like, oh, I can handle these big things. I can handle these scary things. Like I can do hard things. It's like I have that power within me, and that was something I really took from the game, that it was able to do with its all of the story and the sound work and the acting and the design elements of it that really put it in that experience.
It almost sounds to me like that situation that you were describing with the basement and the hanging bodies, everything like that, and like the feeling of anxiety that you had. Like it's almost like a fantastic way to kind of represent how like a person can be stuck with like really negative, intrusive like feelings and thoughts, and how it sucks to be in that, and that really shitty situation, but how like eventually you will get through it, right? It sucks. You kind of have to sit in it for a little bit, right? But it does come to an end as long as you keep moving forward. So like it's kind of like, it sounds like it's like that perfect representation of like, I mean, the idea is like a perfect representation of like real life feelings like that. We're not all walking through basements of hanging dead bodies, the creatures patrolling it, right?
Oh yeah,
like,
no, the feeling there is like sheer panic.
Yeah.
That's not just
Some
like,
people have
I'm
that,
kind of worried about things sometimes. That's like, holy fuck, I'm gonna die. This is not good.
Yeah.
But that's absolutely like the rest of the game kind of deals with that question of like, it's like you have these like things about yourself and these things that have happened in your life that you can't really get rid of, and like how do you get through that? And yeah, they made a fucking banger with that game, and I'm gearing up to, I'm like, I wanted to play it through a second time because I technically, there's like, they just have a little thing where I didn't 100% the game my last time through, so, and I think it's just one of those games where it doesn't change anything major. They give you like one little like Easter eggy thing at the end or something if you do it, but I'm like, I need it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, but I also want to, but I also want to like, it's like a book you want to read again. It's like, I want to go through that story again now, like knowing what I know about it all and seeing how that experience holds up again.
I think we all have that one game that we need to 100%, whether we realize it or not. Mine was Final Fantasy 13, or Final Fantasy 10-2, which was just not. It was worth it. Actually, looking back, it was worth it. It was very hard. It was worth it.
Do you find, or is Senua Sacrifice different in the games you usually engage in? I don't mean in like a narrative way, but I mean in a way where, at least for me and for a lot of people, they play games as a kind of way to escape and to experience something outside of themselves, and that's fantastical and wonderful, and that you have these challenges that you can overcome because it's in some ways a power fantasy, where this feels like it's very much different, and it's not a power fantasy. It's here is you experiencing something really challenging and difficult and having an emotional connection to that. Is this the first game where you've been drawn to that, or has there been other games, or are that power fantasy where you can escape and you can have control in a world where a lot of times we don't?
Yeah, a game like Senua's Sacrifice is probably a bit out of my usual zone, at least in terms of like the kind of, in terms of like the heavier content of it, I suppose. But like I've always loved any game that just like tells a good story like that. Anything where I can just kind of be along the ride for. But yeah, I'd say my usual games, that's probably why I like games like Valheim, where you can kind of switch between like, I've got my armor and my Viking weapons, and I will travel into the wilderness to fight the terrible monsters and recover their goods. And then you come back and you'd be like, okay, now I'm going to make my little house. And I'm like, ooh, I'm going to build a new oven to make some bread. Where should I put that? I could put it over here. Or it's like, I need to make sure that's close to these things. So it's like, you got to get to switch between like exploration and like fighting deadly creatures that can kill you in like one hit. And then just like nice like Viking domesticity where you get to like make a little house and like, or make like a castle eventually. And like, just like, kind of I like that mixture of the game elements. I never really play like horror games. Mostly because I can't fucking handle that shit. The only way I know enough about the Resident Evil games is because I watched one of the, I think it's, what's the one of the YouTubers, I think their name is like Toasted Shoes or something. But they're the channel that's got all like, they mostly do like horror games like ruined by mods. So it's like, it's Resident Evil 7, but the whole Baker family is like The Simpsons. Or like, what was it? Like Resident Evil 8. It's like Lady Dimitrescu is just Lady Dimitrescu, but her head is Thomas the Tank Engine. And then when she like transforms, it's just this big like writhing Thomas the Tank Engine flying around. But then I went back, and it's like I was able to like watch. Again, just watching streams of people playing the game.
Yeah.
But I watched like full streams of people playing through both the Resident Evil games. So it's like it's easier, I think, when it's like you know what happens, and then because that gives me a greater appreciation for like the horror aspects, and it's like it's like the games are designed to like elicit that response, but it's still like a little bit of that power fantasy and things, but also like I saw a horror movie in like September, and I still can't sleep with the lights off now. So
yeah. Can I ask what movie it was?
It was Smile. It wasn't even like a good horror movie. It was just like it's like I think I don't know. I could go into a whole nother tangent on how I think it has to do more with like agency and like because I find when it's something like especially in a movie where you're like watching and it's like especially if things are happening to just kind of like mostly innocent people where it's just and they're just suffering and like awful horrific things happen. It's like, okay, that's in my soul now, that's fine. Versus like even like a game like Resident Evil where it's like there's scary shit, but it's like you got a fucking gun, you know,
right?
It's like you know, that's a little I think it's like easier to handle because there's a little bit of like agency and at least some sense of power. You're not completely helpless, you're just mostly helpless. So, yeah, Senua, I remember, you probably could beat it in a day, but I remember it was like, I remember like usually about like a couple hours in at a time, I was like, okay, I'm going to go. It's like, it's a very intense game. It's not always purely like scary, but it is a bit intense. But that's, I think, but it did so much with that in a really deep way that I think that's what would have kept me through it rather than a similar type of game that didn't really have just like these rich like personalities and just this really compelling journey that you get to watch this person go on. Just made that a good time.
If I can ask a quick question, if that's cool for both of you, I think I've said this before, so I'm sorry if I'm a broken record here, but I find, and from the way Celeste that you were describing Hellblade, like I find the most compelling stories, at least the stories I connect with the most, are typically ones where like the main character is often like a person that is just very like I don't want to say normal, but like just very like just a person, right? It's typically a good person or a decent enough person who is like thrown into just a horrifying situation, just an absolute awful situation. And I feel like that's always the most compelling story because that's the person that has to push through this awful time to try to continue to be happy in some way, shape, or form. Like for me, Dead Space is your Hellblade. Like trying to beat Dead Space took me like a year, which it shouldn't take a year to beat, but it was so scary and so hard to play. But I just wanted Isaac to get through it. I just needed him to get off that stupid ship to feel some kind of satisfaction, like because he's just trying to do the right thing and he gets just the worst experience from it. So like that's the kind of thing, like, and that's why horror films as well. Like I watch horror films and it's good people just suffering. Like, what's the point? I don't understand the point of this. Like, why can't there be more to this where this person's trying to get through this awful situation and give me the chance to feel like they're going to get through it and feel something. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree because I very much remember that feeling of just like. I wanna get through this because I want to see the end of the game. But it's like, but I believe the end of the game is going to be hopefully, Senua succeeding at least like getting her husband back, or at least gaining some like closure on that. Or at least going as far as she can. It's like anything less just feels like, because like she's just got that determination throughout the whole game. So it just feels like I, as the player, have to be there to, like, match that, too. I'm like, Senwa's not giving up, so I'm not giving up.
There's this whole other layer, too, where, kind of like you said, being a voice in Senwa's head, you, like, because you are there with her, you are possibly the thing that is pushing her through this, right? Like, you are one of those voices inside her head helping her get through this experience, right?
I really really like that idea. I'm gonna have to like headcanon that as I play through again. I do like imagining there's like these ladies in her head who are like we're just talking, and then there's this one trans girl who's just like, holy fuck, Senua, oh my god, this is awful, but we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
I like that. But yeah,
and something relatable too with characters like that as well. I think, like with Senua, like for me with Isaac Clarke from Dead Space, but like, or even Resident Evil, because Ethan is very much someone who's not a part of that world normally, right? Until he's kind of thrust. Ethan, right? Is his name?
Yeah, Ethan Winters.
Yeah. For 7, yeah, and 8. Who's very much not part of that world, but so which is very like a character you can connect with on that level of like, what is happening right now? This is awful. Like, no. So it kind of helps to kind of like build that story, the narrative.
It's just putting a family member in there is a really like easy but like also really compelling way to just like drive a character. Like, oh, I'm just looking for my wife. Is my wife here? Oh no, there's goo monsters. Where's my wife? And then it's like, well, got my wife, but where's my baby? I need my baby. Oh, there's the werewolves. That's not my baby.
That's not my baby.
Is there? I mean, I think you've kind of already talked about this a little bit, but seeing the impact this game had on you as not just like an observer and a player and having this enjoyable playable experience, but also like as a person, this kind of enforcing the idea that you can do hard things. Do you think, do you want more games like this in the world that challenge people to go through this? And if so, how is that different, or why is that different or equally important as other media? Because I think there are movies and TV shows that put people in difficult situations, but it sometimes feels different to be the driver of that. Do you think there is like what I'm trying to get at is like, why are these things important and what can they do? Not to say other media are bad, but what video games specifically in these narratives, they can elicit and engage us in ways that other media can't. What is your thought on that, or what is your feelings on that, or what is your...
Yeah, because if I go to kind of just like my like if I go to like a rational, really like logical thinking side of my brain and kind of look over Senua's Sacrifice, especially looking at like the gameplay, like the combat's nicely paced and solid. It's kind of got like a Dark Souls-esque feel, but it's not as like and it's like overall in the whole game there's maybe like 1, 2, 3, like maybe like 5 different enemy types in the whole game, and then maybe like not even like 3 like different bosses on top of that. A lot of the game is just mostly like moving through areas. Like it in a gameplay aspect, it is not very complex. It's like other games I play, like when I play League of Legends, like I really like getting into like Overwatch. It's it's all about like the stats, the numbers, the skill, knowing like where you are on the map, getting like strategies, knowing what your enemy can do. There's a lot of like knowledge based into that, and like that really scratches that itch for me. A game like Senua's Sacrifice is very just like emotionally engaging. Like half of it is just like, it's just usually like there's so many times where Senua is just screaming in just like sheer pain, either like physical or emotional. And you definitely got to watch the behind the scenes things for the game. It's like Lord of the Rings. It's like you gotta see the behind the scenes. But like the actress they had who played Senua, like I think was just working for Ninja Theory as either like one of like the stand-in people just to like run lines or something, or was working for them in some capacity, but never really had like an acting role before that. But they were just like, hey, we think you'd be good for Senua. And she talks about how like acting is actually like a huge fear of hers. And so how she channeled that in her performance, I think it's, what's her name? I want to say it's, I need to give good credit. Melina Jurgens, that's her name. But like, goddamn, they do the facial capture, and like, if she doesn't give like the most fucking like heart-wrenching performance, and it's and there's so much like love and research outside of the game put into it that, you know, you can tell that people really like care about that, and they put a lot of time and effort into making it as like coherent and crisp and authentic an experience as they could. So all of that effort to really tell a good story was very important to me. Something that could get to something so just like human, and something so like deep and powerful and strong. It's like very similar to my feelings on why I love playing like Dungeons and Dragons with like you and our friends so much, because it's like, you know, besides just a good excuse to make stand-in characters, you know, for when you don't have therapy, to work on your stuff. Just that storytelling and having a space, you know, in playing a game, you can experience those emotions and these events, but with that safety of, you know, those things aren't actually happening to you. You know, you're not actually getting like, you know, your whole fucking leg bit off or something. I don't know. You're not about to drown in like an ice river or something. But it gives you enough of a connection to it where it's you know, it's not, you're not wholly separated from it. You're still in it, you know, to a degree, and that's how it affects you and becomes a part of you. And it's really just a good way to like empathize with other people for like problems and emotions that you probably maybe never have had, or maybe never will have, or maybe you've had something frighteningly similar. But it just connects on such like an emotional level, and that's where a lot of its like power comes from. Just makes you feel things, gives you the feelings, and then it's done.
Do you feel like it's ironic? Because when you said that, I just had this thought. Do you think it's ironic how like games like Senua's Sacrifice and other, you know, games like narratives like that makes people feel empathetic towards those characters, which I think you're 100% correct. And then games like League and Overwatch, where you're playing with real humans, you feel like the most least empathetic, and just absolute horrible things are said to other human beings. Like, isn't it the irony in that whole thing? Isn't it?
Well, I try to be the exception in those games because I'm a support man in both games. So I'm just there to be like, I just want everyone to have a good time. Mm-hmm. And so and I'm lucky enough to have like friends that I usually play that with. So it's a little bit more about spending time, because, oh my god, trying to play those games by yourself, solo queuing and stuff, it's just like, oh, I haven't heard that slur in a while. Righto. Like, that can be a time. But yeah, I suppose that's the difference between kind of like a narrative game that's really like inviting you to like engage like emotionally and empathize, versus like a competitive game that's asking you to never put those aside for a little bit while you stomp some noobs. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I usually prefer those experiences where I really get to dive and like empathize with.
There are definitely some games that I would like to play that are heavy and that are going to be hard to experience that I'm excited to play. And I've told Eric this before, but I feel like I need to get in a good mental state to do so.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I need to have the time to fully, speaking about Last of Us Part 2, to like process and work through that experience. And because the first game was so emotional, and so intense, and I really enjoyed it. But like, I was in a different headspace when I played that game than now, and being able to like sit down and fully experience it and not have to like wake up at 7 in the morning and go and like then do a whole day feels overwhelming. So I certainly like it is making sure you find that time to have that headspace is important.
Wow, Ryan, you are so correct. Like, it's funny that you say that because like that just brought me back to playing part 2 compared to part 1. Part 1, like, definitely heavy, right?
Yeah.
But part 2 is giving me all the things that Celeste is saying about Senua, and just kind of having to like go through that. Like, this is an awful situation. I absolutely hate this, and it just kind of sits with you. Like, I can't play Last of Us Part 2. I don't think I can play it for quite a while now. I just don't think I can do it. Like, it's just it's just so heavy. It's so yeah. In a good way. It's a fantastic game. Everyone should try it.
Celeste, where else is there? First off, is there any other game experiences like to talk about? And if not, we can move on to other things. But is there any other games that were important to you, or you want to talk more about before we, close off for the day?
I'm sure I'll think of one for next time.
Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds perfect.
I say as for similar things, me finally getting into another game that has been on my list for a while. That I've been trying to get to, that I just started a couple days ago, was the final season of the Telltale's Walking Dead games.
Oh,
because I've played through the first 3 of those, and oh boy, are those!
yeah.
It's like you play those games. It's like, oh, everyone died. That was fun. And then you just sitting there and just kind of like this like depressed daze for like 3 days afterwards. Like, oh, that was great. I love that. So as I say, as I'm going into the final season to conclude that little that story arc. Clementine. That should be fun.
Yeah, we'll have to make sure we talk about that next time. Well, where can we find you in the world? What anything else you want to plug or share, Celeste, that you want to tell us more about?
Nowhere. I am a hermit. Lives alone in the woods. If you want to, really, I can just plug the fantastic Baldur's Gate episodes here on Tales of Cartridge.
Some of our best episodes, quite honestly.
Yeah. Eric, I was telling Celeste that if you look at our over the past 24 months, it's the top downloaded of our story episodes. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So, for good reason. Like, there's so much effort put into it. It's so good. It's so good.
Honored, so humbled. So stay tuned for when I finish the second half of Baldur's Gate 2. Baldur's Gate 2 Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm so excited. And it's funny too, because I'm actually so thankful, Celeste, for how great of a job you do in those episodes, because it pushes me. Like, so when I was editing that episode, it was pushing me so hard to find the best sound effects and put them in the best spots and make it all sound, because I just wanted to make sure that it was perfect. You know what I mean? So I hopefully it was good enough for you, because your performance is always so great. So I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Well, I'm grateful to have this lovely platform that y'all set up, and
we're grateful. No, speak for you, Ryan. I feel like you feel the same way about it. We're so grateful that you come on. Like, literally, so thankful. So thankful. Mm-hmm. So that way all the Storygoers have to listen to our weird voices all the time.
You get to hear your very good ones.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Celeste, thank you so much for joining us. It is lovely, as always, to have you on, and I can't wait for you to come back.
Thank you so much.
Yes, for sure.
Time as always.
Storygoers, thank you so much for listening. As always, you can reach out through our email, talesfromthecartridge@gmail.com, all the easy 3s, on our Instagram, or by leaving us a voicemail or text at 207-494-4334. And we'll read all those in the future episode. If you have any questions for Celeste, when next time she comes on, we'll be happy to share those and ask questions. That'd be awesome. As always, we will see you in the next episode. Hope everyone's happy, healthy, and safe. Again, Celeste, thank you so much. You're fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.